Hello everyone. You may be wondering why I am not giving my normal YouTube intro, and that is because, well, as you can see from the title of the video, that I am doing another video on Pokebilities. I do believe this should be a more serious video. As you can see from the title says how to fix Pokebilities. So that entails that I have at least one problem, if not multiple, with the metagame. And I will start talking about it right now. Pokebilities has long remained my favorite metagame when it comes to competitive singles. I fell in love with the meta as soon as I heard the premise and started playing it in Gen 7. And while I have had many moments of enjoyment in Gen 8 Pokebilities, it is difficult to completely defend it with the several flaws in the metagame. At the beginning of Gen 8 Pokebilities, many Pokemon were tested in Pokebilities that were banned to Ubers in base Gen 8. The main issue with this is that there were 6 Pokemon dropped all at once when the metagame hadn't even had a chance to be tested normally. Those Pokemon consisted of Spectrayer, Urshifu Single Strike, Cinderace, Magearna, Pheromosa, and Zamazenta Crowned. While the idea of dropping an Uber down into an OM to test its strength and determine whether or not it is overwhelming for a metagame isn't a bad idea, OMs like Pokebilities only last for 1 month at a time, and we can go up to multiple years without an OM returning. Because of the limited time frame, it gives much less time to test the metagame at its base and check for major problems before the meta is irrelevant. Cinderace, Urshifu, and Spectrayer were banned after a few days of testing, and Magearna after 2 weeks. In my opinion, the time used testing them should have instead been used to test the meta at base, letting the testing for Uber Pokemon dropping down wait until the meta is no longer OM of the month. This would allow more time for testing the meta without more utter chaos preventing progression. For instance, many people were complaining about Dracozolt and Conkeldurr in April 2021 when the meta first came to Gen 8. But so little time was given to determine whether or not they were too strong for the meta, because half of the time was given to testing Ubers. Even after the full first 1 month run of Pokebilities in Gen 8, Pheromosa, the mon that was the most clearly overwhelming thing in the meta at the end of it, still remained, only being banned the week before the meta returned in January 2022. Thankfully, the mistake hasn't been repeated since. However, all the testing for these Ubers halted much progress in the meta, leaving much to still need to be tested in January. Eventually, Dracozolt and Conkeldurr were banned. However, with the first month of the format mostly wasted, and the testing of Conkeldurr taking much of the second month, there's barely any time for the meta to truly settle. You may ask why I'm giving you a history lesson in the meta. The reason I am doing this is because it gives important context, making it clear how we ended up at the point we are at as of now. It also helps in understanding that the flaws being spoken about aren't new, that they've been around for a fairly long time. While Pokebilities has made a ton of progress, I do still believe the meta has a bit to go before I can call it truly balanced. The meta is much better than it used to be in terms of competitiveness, but there are still a few major flaws holding it back. The main complaint many have about the metagame as a whole is that Clefable is extremely over-centralizing. Clefable is undoubtedly the number one Pokemon in the metagame, leading me to give it the nickname Queen Clef. The reason for this is that it is mandatory on every single team unless your goal is to not have a viable team. Now, don't misconstrue my words. Slapping Clef on a team by no means makes the team automatically viable. It has to be a genuinely well-made team in order to succeed at a high level. Clefable is mandatory, but it won't automatically make you succeed if you slap it on a team. The reason why Clef is so over-centralizing is because of its ability combination, making it nigh impossible to break through at times while simultaneously being able to effortlessly counter multiple team styles at once because of its combination of abilities. Magic Guard and Unaware simultaneously allow Clef so much leeway in terms of executing a game plan to help its team succeed. This wouldn't be such a major issue if it weren't for the fact that Clef is one of the most versatile Pokemon in existence. You can never truly know what Clef's game plan is without revealing all of its moves. Moonblast and Soft Boiled are used on the heavy majority of sets, but Clefable's coverage allows it to be so unpredictable with the last two moves that you can never truly be comfortable with your own game plan until you reveal the last two moves. Clef can repeatedly set hazards with Stealth Rock, be a reliable pivot with Teleport, remove major items, and be a general nuisance with Knockoff. Spread status repeatedly with Thunder Wave, be a reliable cleric with Aromatherapy, lock Pokemon into one move with Encore, give a form of reliable recovery to its teammates by passing Wish onto them, crippling an opposing Pokemon by using Trick to give them an item such as Choice Band, Scarf, or Specs, Sticky Barb or Black Sludge, or Flame Orb or Toxic Orb, and even allow a warden down Pokemon on your team to come back and wreak havoc by completely healing them and removing any of their status conditions with Healing Wish. That is just on the defensive and support side, too. On the offensive side, Clef is able to run a Cosmic Power plus Stored Power set to become unbreakable while simultaneously giving it what may be its hardest possible hitting move. Clefable can also run a Calm Mind set with many possible last moves. Thunder for Toxapex, Pelipper, and Corviknight, Shadow Ball for Lola Marowak and Galarian Slowking, Psychic for Poison types, Flamethrower for Steel types, or Ice Beam for bulky flyers and grounds. Because of the several moves at its disposal, Clef is an extremely versatile and can perform any role needed while being amazing in all of them. Despite meager base stats, Clefable avoids OHKOs from the heavy majority of Pokemon and many 2-KOs if you have proper EV spreads. For example, a Clefable with leftovers and an EV spread of 252 HP, 244 defense, and 12 special defense with a bold nature always avoids a 2-KO from a Choice Specs and Dragapult Shadow Ball, barring critical hits. Another example, a Clefable with leftovers and an EV spread of 252 HP, 72 defense, 184 special defense, and a bold nature always avoids an OHKO from an Alola Marowak Flare Blitz without a critical hit. Due to its insane versatility in every category, Clefable is impossible to completely counter, even with one's own Clefable. The closest one can come is Galarian Weezing, which will still get 2-KO'd by a +1 Life Orb Psychic from Clefable, even being unable to hit Clef back hard in several cases as it rarely runs Sludge Bomb. Most Galarian Weezing sets don't even run Haze or Clear Smog to remove stat changes, making it even less reliable against Clefable. And to show you the strength of Clefable, I made, let's see, how many sets is this? 15 sets that could all viably be ran. Multiple trick sets, multiple Calm Minds, although they are outnumbered by the other sets. And most of the sets, as you see, are support. Stealth Rock, Toxic, Wish Pass, Healing Wish, Thunder Wave, Knockoff, Encore, Aromatherapy, or Heal Bell. Clefable has so much versatility and is able to effortlessly do all of these things while not being able to be countered by anything in the metagame, including itself. However, while the main perpetrator, Clef is far from the only issue with the metagame. Pokebilities teams are mostly stall and balance. The main reason for this is the fact that most Pokemon that have Regenerator also have other great abilities. Examples include Eldegoss, which becomes the best contact punishment Pokemon in the game with Cotton Down and Effect Spore. Slowbro and Slowking, which get Oblivious to avoid taunt and continuously pressure opponents with Teleport and Putricite. Toxapex, which gets Limber to prevent paralysis and Merciless to abuse poison being spread. Meanshao, which can double as a major offensive threat with Inner Focus preventing flinching and Intimidate, and Reckless boosting its high jump kick to a massive 156 base power before Stab is even taken into account. Galarian Slowbro, which always has a 30% chance of moving first with Quick Draw. Reuniclus, which avoids all forms of passive damage with Magic Guard. Amoonguss, which gets Effect Spore for additional contact punishment, and Corsola, which heals off all the status you put on it while switching out with Natural Cure. Those aren't the only reliable regenerator uses either, as Tangrowth, Tornadus Therian, and Galarian Slowking are still great in the meta. Being able to repeatedly stave off threats while providing some niche utility. There are many other defensive Pokemon that can be frustrating, such as Corviknight, Zapdos, Moltres, Heatran, and Galarian Weezing, but these Pokemon don't get pushed to the levels that can seem absurd at many times. Of course, Stall being the best playstyle in the metagame doesn't make it uncompetitive in and of itself, and the majority of the time, the player complaining about Stall is simply complaining because they don't have the patience to combat the Stall team. However, Pokebilities has gotten to a point where the most common type of offensive team is Hail, which, while not a gimmick by any means, is still just good as a playstyle, and the only truly good offensive playstyle, held back from being great because the rule of stall and balance. Those are the only major problems I have with Pokebilities at this point in time, Clefable and the metagame revolving 60% approximately around stall. Now, I won't give my complaints about a meta without proposing solutions, as that wouldn't make the meta progress any further. Of course, the solutions I propose are purely subjective and what I believe would make the metagame both more competitive and more fun. My first proposal is to ban Clefable. I believe it to be strictly overbearing both offensively and defensively in the metagame. There is nothing with the capacity to counter multiple Clefable sets at once. Simply check one or two and crumble to another. With Clefable being banned, the metagame wouldn't revolve solely around one Pokemon that has to be constantly danced around. My next proposal is to add a regenerator clause of sorts, much like the metagame mashup of Pokebilities and almost any ability, where you are limited to 2 regenerator Pokemon per team. This makes it to where many stall teams wouldn't be as infuriatingly unbreakable at times with the major buffs that many regenerator Pokemon got. With regenerator being restricted, stall would fall enough to where other metagame playstyles are just as good, if not better, and several different types of playstyles are viable in the meta, except just the very small handful that we have right now. And there you have it, my issues with the Pokebilities metagame, and my ideas of how it could be fixed. This is the end of the script for the video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. This is my first time ever making a script, so if it sounds like it was staged, yeah, that's why. It's just, Pokebilities is a metagame that I've always absolutely loved the concept of. and I absolutely adored playing it in Gen 7. What I am speaking right now is unscripted after I mentioned it being the first video that I ever made a script for. This is all coming from the heart. Even with all the damage done to Pokebilities, I have, let's see, 51 teams because these three down here are theoretical national Dex Pokebilities teams. I still absolutely love the metagame, just because the idea that it proposes of a Pokemon being able to have all their abilities at once, it makes it feel like they're fighting at their max potential, and it makes so many Pokemon more interesting, even if some also more frustrating. It shoots multiple Pokemon up into a higher status of viability, while others may get nerfed, such as Skarmory or Mandibuzz. And while seeing the nerfs does suck a lot of times, seeing new Pokemon rise up and become genuine parts of the metagame is something that I've genuinely loved to see happen. Pokemon with more niche abilities getting used more and more to adapt to different changes in the metagame, and it all came down to where it is now. Adaptation and counter adaptation has led to where Stall is rolling everything, and balance is the second best playstyle. It's difficult at best to make offense work, and I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is really rare to see it. And for a metagame which has the potential to spark so much creativity within the player base, it is something that I hate to see. Because even with what you can do now, it is held back so much by Clefable and our generator spam just rolling the metagame. You can do more than how I may have made it out to be in this video. I did give a bit of over-exaggeration. But at the same time, that over-exaggeration, while it still is exaggeration, it is not too far from the truth. Just barely far from it, if you get what I'm saying. And I really hate to see this happen to my favorite metagame. As much as I love Pokebilities, I genuinely just don't like the state that it is in as of now. And I do believe that the solutions I had proposed would genuinely make the metagame more enjoyable. Of course, not everyone is going to agree with me. I wouldn't expect that at a million years. And I'm not going to say anyone is wrong for disagreeing with me. Different people have different ideas of what is healthy for a metagame and what is not. And my idea of what is healthy for a metagame won't be the same as another person's. But the main goal is to be as competitive and fun as possible with the metagame, while simultaneously not making it to where everything has to be the same and everything has to be so bland. Which is where we are now, with everything having to be clef, 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 regenerator, clef, regenerator, regenerator on every team. Which can be frustrating. Now, I do not know what will happen to Pokebilities as of now. I do not have any insight or information from anyone. However, if it does come back, I either would like to see it changed and even just one of my suggestions implemented, or I would like the format of Pokebilities to be changed to National Dex, because just having the extra Megas, the extra Pokemon, and even Z moves, as broken as they may be, it makes the metagame much less stall-oriented, and it makes other playstyles extremely viable and great instead of just meh, instead of just okay and difficult to make work. This is a metagame I've spent so much time on. 5 years of my 18-year life so far, I've spent being obsessed with this metagame, constantly theory crafting as much as I could. And I really have enjoyed the ride. The destination was really underwhelming for me, but the journey is something that I will always remember. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed the journey as well. Anyways, guys, this has been Typhlosion787. I'll see you in the next video.